What is going on, everyone? Welcome into Big Time Football Talk. So I want to go over draft scenarios for the AFC North teams, starting with the Baltimore Ravens. The Ravens obviously were a very good team this year, and just came up short to the Bills in that playoff game. And at pick 27, I think Trevin Mulrig makes a lot of sense. Mulrig's going to be a guy that potentially could be mocked to a lot of different teams because he's kind of the consensus number one safety in this draft. Talked about him, on the show last night. He really jumps off the tape, and safety play was okay for Baltimore last year. Deshaun Elliott, Chuck Clark, but getting Mulrig could be that big splash draft pick that really takes their secondary to a whole nother level. Obviously Marlon Humphrey and Marcus Peters going strong at the corners. You get a guy like Mulrig that can be a leader and be super athletic and make plays in that secondary, and that'd be a monster pick for Baltimore there. Zaven Collins too. Zaven Collins, like Mulrig's a guy that is going to be to that mid to late rounder. A lot of guys looking at him, but Zaven Collins, a guy that's really grown on me. And the small school thing scared me, but as you watch him more and more, I think you start to like him more and more, and kind of really get an understanding of why he was so highly coveted this year and talked about. And size and the physical abilities to succeed. And like I said, going to a great organization is going to be big for how Zaven Collins' NFL career goes. And you go to an organization like Pittsburgh, that seems like a great fit, and an organization that can get the most out of Collins. And a winning environment that he'd also would love to be there and compete. Linebacker play was solid for Baltimore this year. Patrick Queen, the rookie, had a very productive season. Malik Harrison played a little bit, so they have some depth at that position. But to me, Zaven Collins seems like a guy they could play outside in a 3-4, and or maybe who knows, rotate him in the middle, whatever they want to do with Collins. Potential, could be a heck of a special teams player too. And Carlos Basham. Carlos Basham is a guy I think could play well defensive end in the 3-4 scheme. I think it would be a perfect fit because he's shown the ability to rush a passer from the inside. And they just re-signed Derek Wolfe to another 1-year, $3 million deal, which is interesting to me because I thought they would move off from Wolfe because Wolfe's getting up there in age. But you bring in Basham, you add some depth, and if Derek Wolfe misses some games, you got a guy that you could plug in. I love the Ravens. I love their depth, defensively. And a couple years ago, their roster they had injuries was a main concern, but they're just an organization that's continued to draft well and just keep getting better and better. And Baltimore is an organization that's not afraid to shy away from best player on the board. But, these picks right here, I think you would not only make sense as far as these guys would be top of the board, but they would also make sense as far as, filling in some needs somewhat. So, and, that's the other thing. Yannick Ngakoue, not really sure about his future. And, Matt Judon likely gone too. So bring in some, Basham, bringing in a younger edge rusher. Will help even more with those departures. But so obviously offense could be in consideration here for Baltimore. Wide receiver Marquise Brown, kind of the main man there, and he's been very, very solid. Mark Andrews, one of the better pass catching tight ends. But there was a trade discussion about Julio Jones, which will be interesting. Interesting fit there in Baltimore. I don't know if I could see it as a great fit. I think it's an okay fit. Lamar, I think the receiving core and right now is kind of a good fit for Mark Andrews because, a quarterback that's not let's be honest, Lamar Jackson, his forte really is not, picking defenses apart through the air, a tight end that you can check it down to, and an explosive receiver that can, get open. And Marquise Brown, I think, that really makes sense. Julio Jones, more of a guy that, kind of likes to get into a rhythm and, catch a few passes or catch several passes a game. So, but, I I think if they could, find another speedster or a guy that uh, is productive, and maybe I don't know. Who knows? There's a lot of guys in a deep wide receiver. Who knows? Kadarius Toney, I guess, if he slips that late, but I guess we'll see. So the Cleveland Browns, it looks like Olivier Vernon isn't going to return. So Nick Bolton at pick 26, first round makes a lot of sense. I think Bolton's a very underrated linebacker in this draft. He's a guy that has made plays in the run game, in the pass game, and most run stops at 26 by Pro Football Focus this year. And Bolton, not a very good Missouri team he played on, or I guess they were okay this year, but I look for guys that really stand out on bad teams because a lot of times some guys can excel and on good teams, but Nick Bolton, a guy that very productive career at Missouri, and has stayed pretty healthy, and kind of adds that athleticism that more athleticism at the linebacker position that is could help out the Browns and as far as winning some more games and playing even better on the defensive side of the football, a side that they struggled on in the secondary, which leads me to Trevor Mulrig. Would be right in the mix. Obviously, they'll get Grant Delpit back this year from injury, which will help in that secondary a lot. Still got Denzel Ward, one of the best corners in the league, but so be interesting to see what they'll do with the first round pick. Whether they want to go secondary, whether they want to go linebacker. Or even defensive line could be in the mix as well. J2 Felly in the second round would be an interesting guy. Opted out of the 2020 season, a D tackle from USC, but he's got a pretty good size and a great skill set. And not only did the skill set really match the production in 2019, 42 tackles and 4.5 sacks. Keith Taylor from Washington is another interesting guy at corner. Obviously, this goes on. I'm adding on to saying the Browns secondary really struggled as a whole in the 2020 season. So adding a guy like Keith Taylor from Washington, who's played very well, and he those Washington defensive players their game has really translated well to the NFL. Look at Baltimore, Marcus Peters, Shaq Thompson. So Washington players usually fare well in the NFL. Chris Peterson has the guy that recruited him has done a good job of finding defensive talent. So I think that's something that you keep in mind. Like South Carolina players, Will Muschamp, good defensive mind, good recruiter. It seems like some of these same schools recruit or get a lot of the NFL talent. LSU, Alabama is some of the more notable ones. USC a little bit. So it goes back to a good pipeline being the Washington Huskies. Washington seems to know what they're doing as far as developing talent, especially in the defensive secondary. So, yeah, that would be a good pick there. The Bengals are such an interesting team as far as the number 5 pick. The dream scenario would be as Penei Sewell falls to number 5, and the bottom line with that pick is they need to protect Joe Burrow at all cost. So, that's the dream scenario, but and also, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith, any of those 3 receivers, you think Jamar Chase would make a lot of sense because he played with Joe Burrow in college, and they had a great connection. Just 2,000-yard season, 20 touchdowns or whatever Jamar Chase had. Got T. Higgins, their rookie wide receiver they took second round last year, made an impact, and A.J. Green struggled. He's aging a little bit, so to get another playmaker would be huge. And so Jamar Chase, Penei Sewell, 2 guys to keep in mind. I think trade back scenario is definitely in the mix for Cincinnati here. You trade back Christian Darrisaw, Virginia Tech, Rashawn Slater from Northwestern. Those are guys they got to keep in mind too if you trade back. But offensive mind is got to be a position that they're really eyeing in this draft. So in the second round, Alex Leatherwood, another offensive tackle. Who knows? You could double down and offensive line. And, that's the thing. Sewell's so versatile. He can play guard. So if you take Leatherwood at tackle, keep Jonah Williams at left tackle, and you put Leatherwood at right tackle. But, Leatherwood's a guy that could fall to the second round and have a solid NFL career. Struggled at the Pro Bowl or the Senior Bowl with one-on-ones, excuse me. So, but, great career at Alabama. High praise from Nick Saban. And, interesting pick if they go Leatherwood if he falls to the second round. And then, second, third round cornerback could be in the mix. It's uncertain what they're going to do with William Jackson. And then, Deontay Brown, a guard from Alabama, could be in the mix as well. Wyatt Davis, late first round, second round guard from Ohio State. This is a draft that's very deep at the offensive line, which is something that the Bengals got to be really happy about. So, also a edge rusher could be in the mix too. Obviously, they traded Carlos Dunlap to Seattle. And, so Bengals, obviously a team with, holes on the defensive side of the ball is not only just the offensive line, but, So next team is the Pittsburgh Steelers. And, an interesting one here, Travis Etienne, running back. So James Conner, it's not really sure what they want to do with him, but Travis Etienne, arguably the best running back in this draft. Size, speed, physicality, production, all 3 years at Clemson. Love what Travis Etienne brings to the table, and a guy I just love watch playing. And Pittsburgh shied away from running the ball this year, which was kind of something crazy. They were throwing the ball over the yard, and it helped when you had guys like Juju Smith-Schuster, Chase Claypool. Who else do they have? The one receiver that his name escapes me right now. Try to think, but they bottom line is they have several good wide receivers. You get a great running back this year, and you can get the running game going. It can add a whole other dimension, and make the Pittsburgh Steelers an even more dangerous offense potentially. Obviously they don't know what's going to happen with Big Ben in the offseason, whether he's going to retire or return, but ETN, whoever plays quarterback, ETN has a chance to really open up that run game and create some big plays in the run game and the passing game. So second round, Zaven Collins is in the mix because, Bud Dupree's future is uncertain. Davion Nixon, defensive tackle from Iowa, who's kind of just rising up draft boards at the defensive tackle position. But, so not sure exactly. Pittsburgh's a team to watch. Trey Lance, even in CBS latest mock draft, has the Pittsburgh Steelers taking quarterback from North Dakota State in Lance. And, it goes back to, Big Ben's uncertainty. Do you want to take a quarterback? Trey Lance, if he falls, obviously is great value because he's really talked about, as, the number 3-4 quarterback in a quarterback class that's very strong this season. So, interesting what they'll do there. So, but I want to dive deep, and this is such a great wide receiver class this year. And one guy I've watched a lot, Amon-Ra St. Brown, I think is one of the more underrated receivers. To me, he's like the number 5, number 6 wide receiver, which is saying a lot in a wide receiver class that is just absolutely loaded this year. St. Brown has been productive, all 3 years really at USC. A monster year last year when he played a full game slate, over 1,000 yards, receiving 7 receiving touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown. And then this year he was productive in every single game. It's just such a consistent player. He does such a good job of high-pointing the football. And, his brother, Equanimous St. Brown, plays for the Green Bay Packers. Maybe that's why people are shying away because, his brother's a solid, number 2, 3 wide receiver in Green Bay. But, I think Amon-Ra St. Brown could be a strong wide receiver 2. And then even in some cases, if he goes to the right team, a strong wide receiver 1. But, love what I've seen out of Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's got good speed, not elite speed. A former 5-star prospect from the state of California. But him, seems like he's kind of being forgotten about. And I touched on Rashad Bateman, how he's interesting, and Terrence Marshall, and it's just no, wide receiver value is everywhere. I mean, a couple of years ago it was crazy because you saw so many, first round busts and Kevin White and Josh Doxson and a few years back in the draft, and then now it seems like some of these receivers are coming in so pro ready. It seems like their work ethic is just outstanding. And Amon-Ra St. Brown, I saw him working out in the offseason. He seemed so hungry, and I think he was a key reason why USC was super hungry this year. And they had a great year offensively, and just came up short of winning the Pac-12. And had a great quarterback throwing in the ball too in Caden Slovis. So that helped things out as well in a clutch game-winning touchdown this year against UCLA. So, I just wanted to dig deep into Amon-Ra St. Brown, and people should be sleeping on this kid. So, I just wanted to touch on that. Yeah, so the top running back in this draft is just so hard to decide between. A lot of people could argue, Javonte Williams from North Carolina because he broke so many darn tackles this year and was just a beast on the ground. And, Chuba Hubbard, it's hard to forget his production in 2019, over 2,000 yards on the ground. And, there's some good backs in this running back class. Kenneth Gainwell from Memphis is talked about a lot too. Najee Harris or Travis Etienne, which one for me to decide on? I think it's such a tough call because Najee Harris, a guy that got to Alabama and didn't play a lot early on and just kept getting better and better, and his work ethic is just unbelievable. I mean, his legs are absolutely ripped, and a guy that really waited his turn. And this year it was his offense. Let's be honest. Mac Jones, not to take anything away from Mac Jones and Devontae Smith, but Najee Harris kind of just made this offense. You look at the chunk plays from Mac Jones, Devontae Smith, but Najee Harris was always making guys miss, getting tough yardage, doing dirty work in the pass blocking game, and he's a guy that. Even if Travis Etienne has better stats as a rookie and long term, Najee Harris is just going to be such a valuable. You talk about true valuable player to an NFL football team. That's Najee Harris, and I can't say enough about Najee Harris for waiting his turn, coming into Alabama. Maybe getting a little frustrated, but that's the thing. That's why this competitiveness, like Nick Saban talked about, is what creates the winning environment and creates guys getting better and improve. Because say Najee Harris Say if he went to Michigan, sadly, I would have loved to see Najee Harris run the ball at Michigan, but maybe he wouldn't have put in the time to be as great and put in that work ethic. So, and the same could be said about Travis Etienne. Etienne played a lot more as a youngster, but he wasn't like the feature back, and it wasn't getting the monster stats like he did especially this year in 2020 and then last year in 2019. So. But yeah, I like the depth at running back too. It seems like this draft, is good quarterback, wide receiver. All offense is pretty good. All offensive side of the ball is very solid draft. But it'll be interesting to see whether people prefer Najee Harris or Etienne, or even if there's a team that likes Javonte Williams and he can jump ahead of him. And I think it'll be interesting to see. One of the toughest things to bet on in Vegas is how many running backs will go first round in the NFL draft. I would guess this year I would say 2, and it's likely. I think it would be Najee Harris, Etienne, or I bet the over and under would be at 1.5, and I would bet the over, just slightly over. I think Najee Harris and Etienne will go first round. But the other thing, but then again, that might be tough because there's not a lot of teams that are running back hungry. I really think, Pittsburgh, who I just talked about, could be running back hungry. The Miami Dolphins could be interested in taking a running back. Who else? The Jets. I think those 3 teams could take a running back. If the Dolphins, if they take Najee Harris, would likely be at the 18th pick and not the 3 pick. Nothing against Najee Harris, but that's very high to take a running back, a position that a lot of times has a short lifespan. Even though, not to say Najee Harris won't have a long NFL career, but So the next I want to talk about NFL free agent wide receivers. what to do, whether to franchise tag him and trade him. Allen Robinson is such an interesting case this year, and I would be opening to franchise tag and trade, and I think a lot of people agree because this Bears offense is just so painful to watch, and they need a quarterback badly. Let's be honest, the Bears need an elite quarterback, and so franchise tag and trade Allen Robinson. I don't think this offense is much worse without Allen Robinson, even though he's been productive the last couple of years. I thought he'd be a guy that would take a step back after having a monster year early on in his career with Jacksonville. He has remained consistency as far as catching the ball, but I think he franchise tag and then look to trade him. And the Bears still have some other solid receivers. The kid they drafted, and then who's that other numbers? What's that man? Let me look at this. Yeah, Darnell Mooney has showed flashes. Anthony Miller. David, and I mean, running back, they're okay. The offensive line, I mean, obviously could improve. But, yeah, Darnell Mooney showed a lot of flashes. I think with Mooney and Anthony Miller, those are guys that have been very solid. I mean, it's not like Allen Robinson is taking this receiver core in this offense, to another level. It's more of just, without him, the offense may not be as good, but offense, already painful to watch for the Chicago Bears. So, franchise tag him, trade, and see what you can get for him. Probably realistically, second, third round. A first round might be a stretch for Robinson, but you get a second round. You could use that to take a guy in the second round, whether Marshall, Bateman, Amon-Ra St. Brown, like I talked about. So Chris Godwin is so interesting because Tampa Bay is likely going to move on because Godwin probably is going to want a lot of money and likely be the number one wide receiver somewhere else, wherever that may be. And Tampa Bay, it'll be interesting now with Tom Brady if they're going to overpay anyone, but they already are thinking about paying up for Levante David, and there's no way they're going to pay up for Levante David and Chris Godwin. I just have a hard time seeing that unless they really want to try to make have a very talented roster and spend a lot of money. I just don't see it. Chris Godwin probably going to get a chance to sign somewhere else. I think you just don't even mess with this. You let him get paid because Godwin struggled with some drops and dealt with some injuries. Was productive in games actually when he had an injury, but if he plays the whole game, he could be even more productive. So I think you move off of Godwin here and let him sign and let some other team overpay for him. Next, Kenny Galladay. Kenny Galladay is one of the most frustrating players in the NFL because this year, if he wanted to play, he could have had I think he could have had another big year. Had some clutch. He had a big game against the Saints when he actually played, and or not. Who was that? I can't remember. He had a couple big games when he actually played, but who knows if he was actually injured this year because I think he was fed up with the Patricia. At Bob's Quinn and whatever that was for the Lions this year. But, who knows if he was actually hurt or not. But, Kenny Galladay, I think they're going to franchise tag him because, the wide receiver core for the Lions is very slim. Looks like, Marvin Jones is going to move up. They're going to move on from him. And so I think you franchise tag, give Galladay another year, give the Lions a chance to, see what he can do with Goff, I guess, see if they have any sort of chemistry. And then obviously I think the Lions might go draft receiver first round, if not second round, third round. The Lions are going to I feel like they're going to definitely take a young wide receiver, the talented one, whether it's, first, second, third round, somewhere in that ballpark. But, keep Galladay so your offense doesn't completely plummet because they really don't have a lot of depth at the wide receiver position if you choose to move off of Galladay. So, keep him around one more year on the franchise tag and, look to draft a young guy and, just see what the connection is with Goff because, Galladay did a great job of, makes contested catches, led the league in receiving touchdowns, something people forget in 2019 and, was snubbed from, getting NFL top 100 and, 2019 was a memorable year, over 1,000 yards for Galladay too. Yeah. So I think I'm going to wrap with that, guys. Thanks for tuning in to this episode of Big Time Football Talk. Make sure to stay tuned for more episode clips from the show. Till next time, peace.